I'm now joined by Congressman Steve Cohen. He is a Democrat from Tennessee and a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Thank you so much, Congressman, for being here. Now, you're urging President Biden to evoke the 14th Amendment. You're arguing that it allows the Treasury Secretary to keep borrowing to pay for our debt, our national debt, even when we've reached our debt limit. But Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, she's shot down that idea yesterday. Take a listen to her.
Well, extraordinary measures is used in a different way, but there has been much discussion of the 14th Amendment. And as President Biden said, I believe this morning, it doesn't seem like something that could be appropriately used in these circumstances, given the legal uncertainty around it and given the tight time frame we're on.
So what does it say about your argument, Congressman, if the head of the Treasury doesn't support it?
Well, my argument has been made by Lawrence Tribe. I think Lawrence Tribe is Obi-Wan Kenobi when it comes to constitutional law. He thinks it's something that the president should use. The 14th Amendment is not just letters that are put out there in a constitution without meaning. And the meaning is that the debt shall not be, the debt shall be honored. It's never been used before, but it's there for a reason, and this is the reason why it was put there, to make sure that we paid our debts. I know that it would be a political question for the courts, but it could be determined a political question that they don't get into because it is a political question. But I don't think if this is not appropriate, Lawrence Tribe says it is, then what are those words there for? Just letters that come together to make words that don't have any meaning or any purpose? I don't think so.
I want to also ask you, though, Congressman, about the timeline of all this. President Biden has seemed to question whether the timing of the 14th Amendment is an idea that he could get behind. Here's what he said yesterday.
We have not come up with a unilateral action that could succeed in a matter of 2 weeks or 3 weeks. That's the issue.
So I want to ask you, how can the president invoke the 14th Amendment if he is questioning whether that's a viable option, focusing on timing?
Well, timing is important, and I know the president's had counsel. I don't know who's weighed in with him, but I understand that. But at the same time, he's going to have to get a deal, and if he doesn't get a deal that's satisfactory to 218 members of Congress, we'll default on our debt. And I don't know that they'll be able to accomplish that together. Right now, it looks like everything's fine, and one of our previous speakers, one of your people said, McCarthy's the only person who's passed a bill. Well, you could say somebody's the only person that cooked a filet mignon, but with that filet mignon was a whole bunch of terrible, awful vegetables and hot dogs and things you wouldn't want to necessarily have that they put into it with it. That was not a clean debt limit, which is what we should have had. That's what Trump wanted. That's what Trump got. They treated Trump differently than Biden because they want Biden to fail. And this is really kind of a continuation of January 6th, where they went for any argument they could to try to change the election results for Trump, and they want to change the course of history against Biden for the election in 2024. And Trump has said that we should default. And he also said that we didn't default when he was president. He wasn't for defaulting because he was president then and he's not president now. So he's like the kid that was in class, and when he got out of class, he's throwing spitballs and water balloons at the principal and the teacher.
And Congressman, I understand what you're saying, that Republicans, you see them as treating President Biden differently. But the point is that they have control of the House. And now you have someone like the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, saying the 14th Amendment will not work. So square that argument that the Treasury Secretary, the president, they're questioning the 14th Amendment and saying it's probably not going to work, with you pushing the president and saying he should use this amendment.
Well, the Progressive Caucus, about 65 of us, signed a letter urging him to use this power. And if he can't get anything worked out, which I don't think he will be able to get something worked toward satisfactory to 218 members of Congress, there's no other alternative but to use it and then worry about the time factor and all those issues later. Lawrence Tribe hasn't said this is too late. And unless Lawrence Tribe talks, I would suggest that it's still in play. So respect Secretary Yellen, but she's not Lawrence Tribe.
Well, I also want to ask you, of course, one of the core sticking points here is the idea that Republicans are pressing for a reduction in spending. Do you agree that the U.S. as a nation needs to reduce spending in the future?
Well, not really. I mean, we're a very wealthy country. We've got more billionaires and people earning just gazillions of dollars who got 87% of the benefit of the tax break that Trump gave them, gave to the upper 1%. Those people are getting away with murder, and they're trying to eliminate the estate tax so they get away with not just murder, but a mass murder. And there's plenty of money around in wealthy people's pockets that should be taxed. The Trump tax cuts should be repealed, or at least reduced. I think they should be repealed. I voted against them. And the estate tax needs to be maintained, and there will be monies for helping people who don't have enough, who've never had enough, people who didn't get proper education. I mean, Brown versus Board of Education changed segregation in schools, but it's taken years and years and years, and we're still suffering from that. And so there are people in this country that have not had the right opportunities and need to have good public education, need to have highly paid teachers, need to have better police in their communities so their communities are safe from guns, and we need so much that we don't have, and we can afford it. We're the wealthiest, most powerful country in the United States. We shouldn't have people living in poverty, people living without having a fair standard of living. And we need to raise the minimum wage so if people work, which they do, they can get paid a fair wage and participate in the society. Right now, a whole bunch of people in our country do not get to participate in the American dream, and that's because our tax policies are geared toward the wealthiest, and they get away with murder.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. I know a lot of your colleagues would agree with some of the statements that you're saying. It is interesting that we haven't heard the Democratic leaders in the Senate or the House bring up tax cuts as something that they are pushing for right now. So what does a bipartisan deal really look like? What are you willing to concede in order to get this deal done?
I think President Biden has brought up tax cuts on higher income people, and he's brought up revenue, and revenue is important, and the IRS being funded to be able to get people, particularly the big number dollar cheats who take away millions and hundreds of thousands of dollars by not paying their fair share of taxes. They can only be caught by having a better IRS. This is not to go after the little people. It's to go after people making $400,000 or more. You saw what President Trump did. He didn't pay taxes for several years, and they didn't get him. And it took them a long time to get him, and for years and years to analyze it. We need an IRS that can get the tax cheats so people pay fairly. Most people pay out of their paychecks every month. People who don't have paychecks with an employer can wait and pay later, and they don't pay on their taxes on appreciated income that they get out of stocks that they don't sell.
Well, Congressman Steve Cohen, I will thank you so much for joining us. I know there's a lot to talk to, so I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me on. It's good to be on your show.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.